Hi, this is Miss DeVito, and today I'm going to show you how to make some heartwarming baked ziti. We're going to need one 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes, half a medium onion diced, 2 cloves of garlic minced, 1 teaspoon each of dried oregano, basil, and parsley, salt and pepper to taste, 2 teaspoons of sugar, about a tablespoon of olive oil, 1 pound of ziti. If you only have penne, that is fine as well. 8 to 10 ounces of shredded mozzarella, a heaping cup of ricotta cheese, and a 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare my marinara sauce. And in order to do that, I need to prep my ingredients. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dice my onion. I'm going to take this stem end off completely, and then I'm going to just clean the root end just to get rid of any of the fiber so I can make sure they don't wind up in my final product. Then I'm going to peel away the outer peel or outer skin off of the onion. You want to make sure that your onion is nice and clean before you start to dice it, and make sure that your cutting board is clean as well, because we don't want any of these scraps in our final product. So we only need half an onion for this recipe. I'm going to cut my onion into the root end about 3/4 of the way through. You don't want to go all the way through, because then the onion will fall apart when you cut it. Then I'm going to do my vertical slices from front to back. I'm going to cut from stem end to root end to finish off my dice. And then I'm going to put this on the side, and if you want to trim up and cut the remaining of the onion, making sure to discard the root end. The next thing we're going to do is peel and mince our garlic. I like to take my garlic, place it on my cutting board, lay my knife on top of it, and just tap it a little bit just to loosen any of the peel on the garlic. Then I trim the root end of the garlic, and then the peel will come right off. Again, you want to make sure that you are cleaning your cutting board before you start to mince, because we don't want any of this skin or peel in our final product. So in order to mince it, what I like to do is go back and really smash down the garlic until it's nice and flat, because flat things are much easier to work with than things that are rounded that can roll off or slip underneath the knife. So after I have flattened all of the garlic, I'm going to do the rocking motion back and forth to mince my garlic. I like to keep it all together on the cutting board, because it's much easier to mince it when everything is together instead of spread out. So periodically I will clean off the knife, making sure that when I'm wiping the garlic off the knife, I'm always doing it towards the blade and not wiping it off from the blade up. When I'm finished mincing them, I'm going to pour them all into a small bowl, so I'm prepared when I make my sauce. I'm going to use a heavy bottomed cast iron pan to prepare my tomato sauce. I like to use a nice heavy pan because there's a less likely chance that I'm going to burn my tomato sauce or have it stick to the bottom. You can use a heavy-duty stainless steel bottom pan as well. So I'm going to take my olive oil and I'm going to place it into the bottom of my pan and let it get hot. When the oil is hot, when it's sort of glistening on the bottom of the pan, you can add your onions. I don't want the pan to be too hot, because I'm not looking to burn or caramelize my onions. I'm looking to sweat them. Sweat means that I don't want any color on them. I'm going to cook these until they are translucent in color, and then I'm going to get ready to add my garlic. You will cook the garlic for about 20 to 30 seconds. You will smell the beautiful aroma of the garlic as it starts to cook. You just want to make sure that you do not burn or brown this garlic, as it will become bitter and you will taste it in your tomato sauce. So now I'm going to add my crushed tomatoes. I bought 1 can of crushed tomatoes. This is enough for the baked ziti recipe. If you want more tomato sauce on the side of your recipe, you need to make a double batch of this. So I'm going to take 1 can of this crushed tomato and about half a cup of water. I put the water into the can of tomatoes and I swirl it around a little bit so I can get any of the tomato product that is remaining inside of the can. I'm going to add it and I'm going to stir all of the ingredients together. Now I'm going to add my seasonings. I'm going to add my basil, my parsley, my oregano. I'm going to season with salt and pepper. And I'm also going to add my sugar. The sugar is going to help sweeten it and help to reduce the acid taste that the tomatoes naturally have. I'm going to let this cook for about 1.5 to 2 hours and taste it periodically as it cooks, adjusting salt and pepper if needed. So now I'm going to get ready to boil my pasta. I have about a gallon of boiling water here, and I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of salt to this water. You want to make sure that the water is salty, almost like the sea, because this is going to be the only opportunity for you to introduce flavor to the actual noodles. You can add a very flavorful sauce to your pasta dish, but if the noodles don't have it, there will be a missing flavor component to your final dish. So this pasta for only about 7 minutes. We're not looking to fully cook this pasta all the way through. We're looking to start the cooking process. This pasta is going to be finished off in the oven with sauce and cheese. And so we don't want to fully cook it because then the pasta will become mushy and not hold its shape when it is completed. So now I'm going to strain my pasta. I put my colander in my sink and I start to run cold water down the drain as I pour the hot content from my pot into the colander. You want to be careful of any of the steam that is going to come out of the pot, so make sure that you are pouring this away from you. I'm also going to use the cold water to cool down my noodles because I'm not ready to use them yet. So I cool them down so that when they are cooled, they don't stick together. If I leave them in the colander while they're still hot and not cooled down, they will stick together because when the starches become cool, they kind of are attracted to each other and they stick together. So I'm just going to make sure these are really cooled off, and then I'm going to make sure they're really strained, no extra liquid in my colander. All right, so now we're going to start to prepare our baked ziti. We're going to take our heaping cup, just means a little bit more than a cup, of ricotta cheese. I use whole milk ricotta cheese, 1/4 of a cup of Parmesan cheese, about 1/3 of the amount of shredded mozzarella cheese that the recipe called for. So it called for about 8 to 10 ounces, so about 3 ounces of shredded mozzarella. I'm going to take a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. So I'd say about a large pinch of each one, and I'm going to start to combine these ingredients together. Once they are well combined, I'm going to add my ziti. So you notice because they're cooled, they actually just, come apart from each other right into the bowl. Just make sure you have a mixing bowl that is large enough to hold all of these ingredients. So I'm going to mix it well together just to make sure that all of the cheese and the ricotta is spread out evenly. And then I'm going to add some sauce. So I'm going to say I'm adding about 6 ounces at a time every time I ladle into my bowl. So far I've probably put about 12 ounces of tomato sauce into my bowl. Now this is just to add some flavor to these noodles so that there's direct contact of moisture to them when they are baking. But we're going to add almost all of this sauce to this recipe. So I'm going to add a little bit more just to kind of loosen it up. One more ladle, so I have about 15 to 18 ounces, liquid ounces of tomato sauce in this mixture. So now I'm going to prepare my casserole dish. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of sauce on the bottom. Typically, I work with cold sauce when I am making this, but because of time restrictions, my sauce has just finished on the stove. So what we're going to do is we're just basically layering our ingredients. So the first layer is going to be sauce. The next layer is going to be half of the amount of ziti that you have. Now this casserole dish is about a 9 by 13 inch pan. Just make sure that anything that you're going to use is a heat-proof pan. This is a Pyrex pan that can go in the oven. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just spoon some dollops of sauce throughout the top of the ziti, okay? This is just adding moisture in between the layers, and the moisture from this tomato sauce is going to actually help finish the cooking process of the pasta. Then I'm going to take about a third of the shredded mozzarella and I'm going to sprinkle it onto this layer. If you want to add more Parmesan cheese at this point, you can as well. Then I'm going to add the second half of the ziti, just making sure to get every little bit out of the bowl. And then I'm going to spread it out into a nice even layer. Now, we're going to top this layer with some more tomato sauce. Okay, almost finishing the tomato sauce. I just want to make sure that I take a rubber spatula and I spread it out really very evenly at this point. I want to cover all of the top of the ziti with tomato sauce. We are not actually going to put any mozzarella on the top of this pasta dish yet. We will do that later. I want to cover this pan with a little bit of parchment paper and aluminum foil. You cannot put aluminum foil directly on top of the tomato sauce because what will happen is that the acid in the tomato sauce will eat away at the aluminum foil and you'll have aluminum foil bits in the top of your pasta dish. So what I like to do is take parchment paper and I fold it over so that it fits perfectly on top of the pasta dish. And then I take a sheet of aluminum foil and then I place that on top to cover it for it to go into the oven. I'm going to place it in a 350 degree preheated for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, I'm going to take it out. I'm going to take the cover off and I'm going to finish it off with my remaining mozzarella cheese. I'm just going to sprinkle it liberally all over the top, making sure that I get all of the pasta covered with cheese. You want to make sure that you do a nice thin layer of cheese so it melts evenly. I'm going to put it back into my oven for about 15 more minutes until it's nice and golden, bubbly brown on the top. After you take it out of the oven, you have to let it sit for about 10-15 minutes until you cut into it so that the pasta and the cheese kind of set up so the cheese doesn't ooze and you get a nice clean cut. I hope that you enjoyed our recipe. Please let us know if you make it. And if you want to see more recipes like this, please subscribe to our channel.